Hello everyone, very good evening and welcome to StudyIQ IAS English. I am Abhishek Singh and in this lecture today we are going to talk about the most glorious empire of ancient India, probably that empire which is often called as the golden age of India, or nowadays if we are talking about the history, some of the historians they also term this particular phase of Indian history as the dark age for the socio-cultural realities. So what is the exact truth? Was it the golden age or was it the dark age for the women and the downtrodden sections of society? We will try to find out in this lecture about the Gupta age. So today is the first part of the Gupta age, and I hope that all of you, those who are joining the session, must be ready to learn a lot of new things with the perspective based upon the R.S. Sharma, that is a NCERT of class 11th old pattern, and also the other books which are essential for our civil services examination. So let's get started without any further delay and make it sure that as soon as you are joining the session, you should share this video, this link with your friends and the other people who are preparing this examination, and if you share any group with them, you can also share it there itself. Now talking about this particular offer, that actually which is a very grand opportunity for all the students or the aspirants who are actually looking for the one-stop solution for cracking their civil services examination 2024. This program is called as the P2I, that is Prelims to Interview program, in which we provide the one-stop solution to all the aspirants who are enrolled here, beginning from the prelims up to the mains and interview stage. The detailed coverage of the syllabus, current affairs, along with the exam-oriented books and practice tests and lot of other things are provided to you, so that you don't have to roam anywhere else for these resources, and this can be helpful for cracking the examination. So you can choose the batch according to your convenience, and if you are using this code, that is my code ASR Live, then you are going to get this particular course at rupees 29,999. So I hope now everybody is ready for this lecture. So let's get started. So first of all, we will be trying to discuss about the origin of Guptas. So dear students, Gupta dynasty, this is one of the most well-known dynasties in the Indian history, and if we are talking about the Guptas, we must understand that their predecessors were the Kushanas. Their predecessors, or their you can say earlier rulers, were the Kushanas. So naturally we can say that Guptas were most probably the successors, or say the feudatories of the Kushanas. Now what is the difference in between these two terms? When we are saying successors, the successor dynasty, it could be any dynasty which is succeeding the previous dynasty. But when we are saying feudatories, feudatory is a specific term that indicates that the Guptas, they used to be the subordinates of the Kushanas, in their preceding times, which means that after the decline of Kushana power, one of their subordinates who were or who might be handling one of the regions of their kingdom, they simply rose into the power and they decided to wage their wars or the different strategies to acquire the area around their zone, and eventually they became the emperors. So this is basically a simple funda that will repeat itself after this time period. It will be repeating further into the upcoming kingdoms, into the upcoming and subsequent time periods of the ancient as well as the medieval period. Now when we are talking about the feudal system, Probably in the Kushana age, I had told you about the titles, the pompous titles taken by the Kushana monarchs. This tendency, it will continue here in the Gupta age as well. You will observe that even the Gupta rulers will be taking the huge titles indicating their highness, their position and their divinity in their empire. Now the natural question that comes into the minds of any student, that why were they taking such enormous titles? What was the requirement? The most important reason for that is actually the origin of the Guptas. Historians suggest that the Gupta's origin was probably the Vaishya origin. And when I am saying that what is the basis of this theory or this hypothesis, then there is a very important concept given in the Shastras. Shastras are basically the law books which were compiled during the Gupta period only, and here you can see the Shastras talk about the Sharman, Varman, Guptas and Dasas. Okay, you can see the various variations of the Sharman. Even today also Sharma or Sharman or Shraman, all these terminologies, they indicate the scholarly class or the priestly class, basically the Brahmins, okay. Similarly, when we are talking about the Varmans, you might have heard the last names like Varma or Varman or Burman. Basically, it indicates the ruling elite, the ruling class or Kshatriyas, okay. Brahmins, apart from the Brahmins, you can also say the learned class, okay, the learned class. Then Gupta or Gupt, in English we are calling it as Gupta, but properly in Sanskrit this is called as Gupt. Gupt basically relates to the community of merchants, and traders. And Das will be indicative of the Shudra, or basically the serving classes. Now the point here to be understood is that you don't need to consider or don't need to judge any of these categories based on the basis of their social position. Let me tell you the significance of this line, that here anybody who was indulged into not the social position, indulged into the given profession, that person was often referred by these terms Sharman, Varman, Gupt and Das. This is why it is indicated that probably the origin of the Gupta dynasty would have been of the Vaishya or the Gupta ancestry. However, later on we will see that the Chandragupta first, probably the founder, the real founder of this dynasty, he would be marrying into the house of Lichvis. Okay everyone, which indicated that over the period of time the Guptas had started to behave like Kshatriyas. They had probably acquired the social status of Kshatriyas instead of beginning with the humble position of the Gupt or Vaishya, right? So this is, what does it lead to? It leads to the conclusion that probably even in this era the social stage or the social position of the so-called castes or so-called Varna, that was still flexible depending upon their achievements. Now if we are talking about the causes, because the causes of Gupta's success is really important to understand. We can say that there were numerous feudatories, numerous subordinates to the Kushanas. Then why did only Guptas succeed? It is because the Guptas had got several advantages. For example, the biggest advantage that they had, it was the presence of their kingdom in the heartland of the Gangetic alluvial plains. Okay, in the heartland of the Gangetic alluvial plains. Probably their core area that was situated in the eastern Uttar Pradesh, because we get the earliest evidences of the Gupta dynasty and their inscriptions in the eastern part of UP. And this area being extremely fertile, it provided them the sufficient production surplus as well as the economic viability to expand their kingdom in the nearby regions. Apart from that, what else could be the reason? The Guptas were also, as we all are aware, they were also working under the Kushanas as their nobles. So definitely they were well versed with the uses of the cavalry into their army. And remember one point, when your empire is extensive, when you have to fight a war, but you have to make sure that you don't stay into the war for a longer period of time because it can hamper your economic position, then the mobility in the war is really important. And this is why you will observe this single region of agile forces, mobile forces, that will become a huge determining factor into the victory of the horse-driven armies over the elephant-driven armies. It will begin here in the Gupta period and this will continue up to even in the medieval period. Alright. So, it is because the mobility, it determines the effectiveness of the armed forces and their attack over the enemies. And Guptas were probably the masters of this art, because we can see the coins of Gupta rulers, where in their coins we find the representation of the horse riding rulers, which indicates that ruler himself was riding the horse. That is, it was probably the most important carriage, even more important than the elephants. Okay, everyone. Now talking about the other factors which led to their success, apart from their position in the mid-Gangetic valley, apart from their capability in the uses of the horses, apart from their mobility and agility of the army, what were the other factors that led to their success? The most important among them, that was the region in which they were living, they were ruling, they were trying to expand from. That region was extremely resourceful region. Guys, remember always the area about which I am talking here in this particular statement, that area is basically the Gangetic plains, or you can say the northern plains. And we must understand one thing, that in the ancient period, the northern plains, they always led the evolution of any civilization, any empire in the northern India. Why? Because in the ancient period, the agriculture, that was the most significant determinant of the success of any kingdom or any empire. And therefore, if any dynasty got the control over the alluvial plains of the northern India, that dynasty was bound to succeed in the rest of the part of the country. Eventually, after the Gangetic plains, the next most important factor in the success of Gupta dynasty, that was the trade and commerce, for which it was essential to acquire the area of Malwa and to obtain the access to the the access to the coastal areas, so that they could lead to the profitable trade along with the agricultural production. So when they got the agricultural production, when they got the trade, both the boxes ticked in the right direction, then it became quite convenient for the Guptas to expand not just their territories but also their economy, administration, impact over the neighbors, and thus they became the true successors of the Mauryan dynasty as far as the glory and influence over the Indian culture is concerned. They were political successors of the Kushanas, no doubt. But when I am talking about the historical successors, about the succession in the impact and influence on the Indian history, they were simply next to only Mauryas but none else. Alright everybody, I hope you got the entire context here. Okay everyone, now when I am talking about the background of emergence, as I told you that Mauryas, Kushanas and Guptas, these three dynasties would be probably the greatest three dynasties in the northern India in the initial parts of the history, Now the question arises that what was the difference? Suppose there is a question in the UPSC examination that compare the administrative and cultural manifests of the Kushanas and Gupta. Or suppose if there is a simple question, because this type of questions are usually not asked in UPSC, they often give you the questions where you have to do the comparative analysis. Okay, so they will simply give you a generalized question so that you have to understand the differences in the nature of evolution of the Mauryan state, Kushana state and the Gupta state. Then you have to understand that what was the basic difference which separated these three great empires. Okay, I have noted down just one point for each. The basic difference which determined the extent, influence, the pattern and the way of functioning of these dynasties, that is written here: centralized system in the Mauryas, Kshatrapi system in the Kushanas and the beginning of feudalism in the Guptas. Now what is the meaning of each of these three? So when I am talking about the centralized system, remember that Mauryan administration, it revolved around the king. If you remember the Saptang theory, you will be able to recall it by this diagram where the king was called as Nabhi, okay, Nabhi or nucleus, and apart from the king there were distinct 6 elements, if you remember, that was Amatya, okay, and Amatya, apart from that resources, okay, and apart from that Bal and Durg, then Mitra, that is allies, and that is Jan or public. So basically these were the different elements and all were centralized and connected, driven by the central authority called as the king or Samrat. Not only that, if you understand the Mauryan period properly, you might be aware that the entire administrative system till the position of the Rajukas, Yuktas, who were ruling in the local areas, okay, the district and sub-district level officers, even they were appointed by the central authorities. Not only the chief of the provinces, but also the chief of the districts were appointed by the central authority. That was the level of centralization during the Mauryan period. But when I am talking about the Kushanas, what was the essential difference? Since the Kushanas empire was extensive, empire was extensive as well as multicultural, it was extremely difficult to rule such an empire from a single source with a single system following a single administrative pattern. This is why, what did the Kushanas do? They decided to decentralize. They decided to decentralize the entire pattern, and they just placed the representatives called as satrapi, right, satrapas, who were the representatives, of course. Okay, and most often, remember that point, most often these representatives were nobody else but the very same ruler who was defeated by the Kushanas. And this was quite a good strategy, because with the help of this strategy, the Kushanas, they got humongous income, but at the same time less responsibility. So income is high, responsibility is less, that means easier to manage the huge empire. Okay everyone. But now coming to the Gupta period. When I am talking about the Gupta period or Gupta age, these rulers, they inherited the decentralization from the Kushanas, okay, from the Kushanas. But at the same time, their area or their empire was not as huge as that of the Kushanas. So would it be the similar practice, or would it be equally fruitful for the Guptas to implement this type of decentralized system where the local chieftains would be given complete autonomy? Not at all. Therefore, the Guptas will start the feudal system in North India. Okay, they will start the feudal system in North India, where they will try to make sure that certain central officials like Senapati or Mantris, all these people, they would be given certain parts of the land, some areas, and that will be the responsibility of that officer to collect the revenue from that area and to have a small force to maintain the security and safety of that area, the administration of that area, and then also submit the substantial part of revenue at the central office. Are you able to get my point here? The Guptas decided to get one officer, who will be the feudatory. He will be placed at the locality and doing the revenue collection, okay, maintaining the administration, etc., and then submitting the amount to the central ruler. Remember the point that this system or this pattern of administration will not be implemented in the complete empire, but only in certain areas which will be situated quite far away. For example, when you see this particular map, you can understand the Chandragupta first, his empire was quite centralized in this particular region of the northern area. Samudragupta, his empire was very vast and extensive, as you can see, going as far as up to the Coromandel coast here and as far as up to the Hindu Kush valley in the northwest. Whereas if you see the Chandragupta II or Chandragupta Vikramaditya's empire, his empire was also including the Gujarat coast. So now you can understand that probably when Samudragupta defeated the Pallava rulers, when he might have defeated the Pallava rulers, he would have placed the Pallava rulers himself, the ruler himself, as the representative of the central authority of Patliputra, and this Pallava ruler would be sending the huge amount of money to the Guptas. Now this is what I am talking about. This is what the feudalism is. Okay, this is what the feudalism is. Got it, everyone? Kushanas also practiced a type of feudalism only, but with the greater level of autonomy, and they called it as the Kshatrapi system, whereas the Guptas, their feudal system that became famous as the Samanti system, as the Samanti, or simply the Samant. The feudatories were called as a Samant. Okay, they were the feudatories in the Gupta period. Now I hope that all of you have understood the nature of the state. Now let us proceed to have a clear view of the different aspects of the changing nature of the state during the Gupta period. Okay, everyone? So now proceeding to the changing nature of the state in this period, as I told you, here let me tell you one thing, that the Gupta dynasty was basically a dynasty which originated from the obscure origin, from the humble origin. They did not belong to the so-called ruling classes as per the description of the Shastras. So it was very natural that their dynasty would be doing a lot of things in order to influence the elite section of the society, so that their acceptability becomes wider and wider. And this is why the first step that they would be taking when the Chandragupta first will be the ruler, that establishing the matrimonial alliance in a very reputed, very old Kshatriya family, and that was the family of the Likshvis. Okay. However, we know it very well, Yatha Raja Tatha Praja. This is a very old Sanskrit saying, right? So when the king himself was adapting his own methods, his own ways as per the contemporary situation, so that he could access the wider acceptability. This is why the nature of the state will also be having several significant aspects that would be completely segregating the Gupta period from their preceding time period under the Mauryas as well as the later Mauryas. So the first point here, that is the question of the noble origin. Now what does it mean? It means that beginning from the Gupta period, it will become very essential that the ruler must do something to prove that the ruler belongs to the highest virtue. For that, what will the ruler do? Ruler will be taking the titles. Ruler will be doing the land grants to the Brahmins. For that, the ruler will be doing the huge donations and charities. For that, ruler will be doing the yajna or sacrifices. Okay. For that, ruler will be issuing the numerous inscriptions showing their greatness. And not only that, remember, from this point onward, you will start witnessing the extensive patronage to the like-minded, to the ever-praising type of scholars who would be writing the great literature about the ruler or his family or his own life. This is basically the practice that will start in this time period, which means the patronage of appraisive scholars. Okay, appraisive scholars. Remember the name of Hari Sen? Do you remember the name of Hari Sen? If you have gone through the NCERT, Hari Sen was such a person who used to write the inscriptions for Samudragupta, and you will see the level of praise that he has bestowed upon Samudragupta is in a little different league altogether. That was also happening in the early empires. So what is the difference? Paras, if you are talking about taking the titles to prove the high origin, it was happening in the early empires as well. But have you ever heard about any other title apart from Devanam Piyadasi for Ashoka the Great, who probably had the largest and the most extensive empire? Have you ever heard about any so-called scholar who was settled in his court and he used to write the great appraisals for his master? Not there. It was not there. Okay. And let me tell you the second point, which will definitely eliminate your doubt, that here the titles of the earlier rulers since the later Vedic up to the beginning of Guptas, the earlier rulers' title indicated, those titles indicated the divine connection. The divine connection. For example, Devanampi, the beloved of the gods. Devaputra, that is the son of the god. But in the Gupta period, you will see the divinity of the rule. That is obvious. That is obvious. The divinity was essential to proclaim the special position in the society that the king was above all. The king was beyond question. The king was supreme human being on this earth. For this purpose, the divinity of the rule, it was to be proven with the help of the titles. That is absolutely clear. But at the same time, to hide their humble origin, they often took the huge and enormous title. Remember the point that this practice will continuously increasing with the advent of the subsequent rulers of the feudal character. And the most common title that they would be taking up, that is to eliminate their, or to alleviate, not eliminate, but to alleviate their or extend their position among the rest of the landed aristocracy. Among the rest of the landed aristocracy, for example, suppose if Guptas are ruling as the emperor and there are 4 or 5 more dynasties, even they also have the kings. They also have the kings. So what will be the difference? What will be the difference between the Guptas or among the Guptas and other kings? The only difference to indicate the most powerful position of the Guptas, that would be their title, such as Maharaja Dhiraj. Such as Maharaja Dhiraj. Okay. And remember this term will be extensively used not only by the Gupta rulers but also by the upcoming dynasties like Maukhuris or Pushyabhutis, or even during the Rajput period. Okay. So Maharaja Dhiraj will become like a ceremonial title which indicated that he is the king among all the kings. And this title is directly inspired from the title of Shah-o-ne-Shah taken by the Kushanas. Okay everyone, I hope you are getting the point here. Now talking about the third aspect which was changing in this time period. The third aspect, that was the landed aristocracy. The meaning of the landed aristocracy is basically that segment in the society, that section in the society which was given the ownership rights or at least the land revenue collection rights by the royal authority. Now this system of granting the land revenue collection rights or granting the administrative rights over a certain part of land, it will create hundreds of the parallel small scale rulers. Parallel but small scale rulers. It is like, suppose the central government, suppose if you are going to become a district magistrate and central government declares that every district magistrate will become autonomous in his or her district area. That means Now you don't need the permission from the chief minister or any minister to do anything that you want to do, and that will increase your power extensively. Only the condition will be that you have to report to the central authority directly. Doesn't it seem a better choice to increase your powerful position? Same thing will be happening with the landed aristocracy, like certain priests, certain brahmanas, they will be given the land grants. We will hear and learn about the terms called as devdana, okay, devdana or agrahara. All right, everyone. So these type of terminologies will be used, or brahmadeya, okay, brahmadeya, okay. These types of terminologies will be used to indicate those lands, those areas which will be donated to the certain Brahmins or certain religious institutions in order to get the approval for their position of king, as well as in order to do the better administration and better revenue collection in the remote areas. The next very, very important change in the nature, that will be the expansion of the agrarian land. Guys, remember one point. Do not forget that the Gupta period will be probably the highest point in the history of India as far as the urban civilization was concerned in the ancient era. All right, everyone. So the ancient urban culture, that will reach to its peak here, and this is why the population will be growing at a rapid rate. Okay, population will be growing at a rapid rate, which will lead to the need of new agrarian land. Are you able to get the point here, everybody? New agrarian land will be the need of the hour. Not only the new agrarian land will be required, but also the new agricultural labor will be required. Because when the Brahmins or the Kshatriyas, they will be getting the far and remote located areas donated by the king, they will not be doing the agriculture by themselves, na? Or will they? They would not be doing agriculture by themselves. They would need the manpower, for which they would be giving the permission, they would be allowing the Shudra community to come as the laborers on their land, on their agricultural land, and this will give the social upliftment. This will give the social upliftment to the category of the Shudras. All right, everyone. They will be giving the social upliftment to the category of the Shudras. Remember this point, it is very, very essential. So what will happen? The Shudras will be accepted. Shudras would be settled in the newly expanding lands. Okay, newly expanding lands. So when the Shudras will be getting the settlement rights in that area, slowly they would become the part and parcel of the new pattern of the rural life. Remember this line. Initially they will be going for simple cultivation, simple agriculture, but later on, as usual, we all are aware that if you start doing agriculture in certain area, then it leads to the subsequent upgradation of the professions. Some of them might be doing in the transportation business, some of them might be making the utensils, potteries, etc. So their professional expansion, that will affect the nature of social composition in their new settlements, right, everybody? So this will slowly give the rise to slowly give the rise to multiple castes, multiple professions, which would be belonging to the Shudra community. So today you can see the impact of this development, where the Shudra community is basically today's OBC community. They have the entire categorization of their caste depending upon their profession. Okay, carpenter, blacksmith, all right everybody. Then there is a potter, there is potter, cobbler, and so many more. Got it? However, not only that, there will be certain communities and their professions, all right everyone, certain communities and their professions which won't be acceptable by the majority in the society, by the highly placed people in the society, such as the profession of the leather tanning, that will not be acceptable, such as the profession of the birds and animals killing, that will not be acceptable by the highly placed people in the society, such as the profession of burning the dead bodies, that will not be acceptable by the people in the society. So overall, you can watch here the emergence of the concept of purity and pollution, and what was the basis of this concept of purity and pollution? The basis was the profession that they were simply pursuing at that moment. However, the problem will start with this point. When the certain lawmakers will be coming, when certain lawmakers will be emerging in the society, of course from the Brahmanical section, because that was a section dealing in the studies and dealing in the literature, etc. That section would be codifying the rules, regulations, do's, don'ts for every group of the professionals, every group of the social communities, and that will become the problematic thing for the upcoming centuries. Even today, India is facing the problems because of that codification. So numerous new customs and practices would be codified into the law books depending upon the changed character of the society, changed nature of the professions, and changed circumstances. This is why you will observe that the position of the women, the position of the untouchables, the position of the lower sections of the society, that would become miserable. Several misconceptions, several such practices which are superstitious, they would be installed into the social customs. But as we all are aware that the darkest of the clouds have the brightest of the outlinings. So on the one side, the lawgivers are making the conditions difficult for the lower segment of the society. On the other side, several scholars will emerge due to the royal patronage in the same time period. So Gupta age will become the age of science, the age of technology, the age of literature, okay, the age of metallurgy, and so on. Got it everybody? So I hope that the changing nature of the state, which makes the Gupta period amongst the most significant ages in our ancient history, is absolutely well understood by all of you. Did you all understand this point? Yes or no everyone? I hope so. I hope so that everybody is getting the proper understanding here, right everyone? Now, moving further about some sources of information that from where we all are saying, from where are we getting these type of informations about the different rulers. So the rulers would be they would be making several inscriptions, and not only the inscriptions but also the numismatics, that is the coins, official seals, monuments, that is the buildings and structures, okay, and literature of the indigenous, that is the local people, okay, local literature or local languages, and the foreign travelers, all will be the sources of the information about the Gupta rulers. Okay, everybody. So some of the most important inscriptions like Prayag Prashasti, Mahrauli inscription, Aaron inscription, Bhitri, Junagadh, Mandsaur, Nalanda, and so on, they all are the important sources of the information about the Gupta period. All right, we will see all these inscriptions in detailed lectures in upcoming classes, where we will study about the rulers and their contributions. In those chapters, we will be going through all these details, that which particular ruler issued which inscription, which type of coin, right? All these details will be covered. All right, everyone. So you can see here the rough map of the Gupta Empire once again, and you will observe that their empire was mostly situated in the northern India. Okay, everyone. So some of the important inscriptions, if you are willing to learn, then you can learn through this particular chart. Prayag Prashasti, right? It was inscribed by Harisen during the period of Samudragupta. Garud pillar, also the other name of Mahrauli pillar inscription, which talks about Chandragupta II. Mandsaur inscription, that talks about the Vatsabhat and also talks about the silk weavers. Indore copper plate inscription talks about the guild of oil merchants and belongs to the period of the Kumar Gupta. And Aaron inscription, that talks about Samudragupta. Also the Aaron inscription, that belongs to one Bhanu Gupta. For the first time, he will be mentioning the Sati system in 510 AD. The same Aaron inscription will be there. Then Nalanda, Gaya, these talk about the Samudragupta, and they are the copper plate inscriptions. And Udayagiri cave inscription is basically mentioning the two rulers, Chandragupta II and also the Kumar Gupta. Not only that, Junagadh inscription is basically the same inscription on which the Shaka ruler Rudradaman first will be inscribing his Sanskrit verses, and the same inscription on which the Ashoka's rock edict will be there. That stone, that rock will be used by Skand Gupta to discuss his achievements. There was a Bhitri inscription, right, which is not mentioned here probably. There is another very famous Bhitri, right, Bhitri inscription, that is present in the Gazipur district, okay, in the Gazipur district of UP. This Bhitri inscription actually talks about the success of Skand Gupta against the Hunas, right, everyone? So these are certain famous inscriptions about which we should be learning in this chapter. And for more lecture, for more details, we would have to attend the upcoming lectures. So guys, I hope that this solid and concrete information provided to all of you along with the conceptual clarity is definitely going to be helpful for everybody who is watching this lecture and going to appear in the UPSC examination. So make it sure that you don't forget to share this video with your friends as well as those people who are preparing for the examination. And guys, in case if you are willing to enroll for the upcoming batches, you can use my code ASR live for the enrollment in any of the batches as per your preference, which would be giving you the one-stop solution. And for the more details, you can go to the link that is pinned in the comment box after the video is there, and from that link you can download the brochure as well, or you can simply go to the Android Play Store where you can download the application of StudyIQ and download the brochure. So all the details are given in those. But don't forget that our batches are simply going to close the admissions on the 11th of August, because that is the starting date of the new batches in the morning, right? So make it sure that you visit the site and application both. And in case if you want the content of this class, so you can join my Telegram group here by scanning this QR code or by using this address of Telegram. So thanks a lot for watching this lecture, guys, and let us meet tomorrow. Don't forget to join the lecture tomorrow on 4 p.m. regularly, right? From Monday to Saturday, we are live here. Okay, Monday to Saturday, we are live here. Okay, so thank you so much, guys. Bye bye, and have a great day.